Welcome back to another episode of the Nothing to Do podcast. I am your host, Jeremy, and today is a very special day. Not only is it the 3-year anniversary of the Nothing to Do podcast, it is also the beginning of what I hope for it to be a very fruitful and fulfilling chapter of this show. We have a guest here today. We kick it off with a special guest, an LA native. And she's been here long enough here in Providence where we consider her one of our own. Please give it up for Viva Sandoval. Viva, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am good. I'm actually, I was just saying this. I was saying this before I pressed the record button just now. I'm a little bit more nervous than I usually am on this, on my own show, having you. I'm really excited to have you. I will say, Viva, I don't think I've ever seen you not smiling. I don't think I've ever seen you not smiling, which is like, it's awesome. I've never met somebody with such positive energy like you, and I'm really happy to have you on here today. How are you? How are you doing?
I'm good. I had my coffee.
Yeah.
Got a good night's rest, and I'm ready to chat.
That's great. Now, for those of you who don't know, Viva is an educator like myself, and she has been doing this for how long have you been doing this now?
So technically full-time, this is my second full-time year.
Okay.
But in terms of being in a position where I'm in a sort of like mentor, educator, tutor vibe, it's been 8 years.
8 years?
Yeah.
Damn, that's mad long. What were you doing before? Like before
the school we're at now.
Like before the school we're at right now.
I did a master's program.
We work together, by the way.
Yeah.
We work at the same school, which will remain anonymous for the time being. But what were you saying?
I was in a master's program when I got my master's in teaching, and I was actually at Hope High School in Providence. Mm-hmm. And then before that, I was in undergrad studying history, knowing that I wanted to be a history educator. So that was really dope because I was able to like relax during undergrad and not be one of those college kids that's like, what am I going to do with my life?
Right.
I was like, I'm going to be an educator. And I think that gave me an edge in college in my classes, like as a aspiring educator, because I was able to learn. I love learning. And that's partially why I love teaching.
Yeah.
But I love just learning why things are the way they are, especially in this country. And so I was able to learn so much because I came from a high school that was pretty,
Yeah. Very different from where we're at right now.
Very weak academically.
Sure.
There was a couple standout teachers, but like overall, the trend of the school in terms of like scores was not that great. And so being in college was really fulfilling, so I got to learn, but then I would watch all my professors as an educator and be like, how are they engaging me right now? Like, what are they doing to get me interested in this topic? And so that was cool. And then every summer in between within undergrad, I was always doing something like teaching related, whether that was like Breakthrough. I did Breakthrough, which New York, which is like it's like a organization, kind of like a scholarship organization, but for middle school to high school students. That when they're in middle school, they do summer academies to kind of like get them ahead. And then in high school, they provide them resources, scholarships. It's really dope. And they have branches all over the country. So I got to be in New York, which was cool. I did a different program where I was like, I think it's a bit problematic that they grouped these two together, but they were students that either had special learning needs or had disciplinary problems. And they were in this program where they're like doing all these crazy challenges and like, so I've always been in some sort of like mentorship
just
or
educator capacity.
Mm-hmm.
That's dope. That's crazy. That's like so different than like sort of what got me into this space. Mm-hmm. So do you feel like it's like you went to school and like you knew for the most part what you wanted to do when you went to Brown, ladies and gentlemen? She went to Brown, first of all. All right, I know like 3 people that went to Brown. One of them's my sister. One of them's Viva. All right, like that's pretty crazy. I thought, did you get was it just undergrad at Brown or was it just?
And then I stayed for an extra year to do my master's.
Right. Damn. Well, that's pretty impressive. Yeah, I don't know. For me, it was different because like I went to I started my career like as a business major, and then I spent like 4 years in New York doing sales, project management, all that, and like, but it's funny because I've always been in a sort of not educator, but like in a child care capacity since like I graduated from middle school, and it's just funny. Like I came back here in 2020, and like the TA position opened up where we work. And I thought it was gonna be temporary. I thought it was gonna be here. I was like, I don't want to stay in Providence. And part of that too is because like growing up here in Providence, it's like I have that mentality of like this is like a small town, and I want to go do big things somewhere else, whether it's like New York or
spread your
fucking
wings.
LA, whatever it is, exactly. And so I thought that was like gonna be temporary, and then I'm like, look. Not only am I like in it, you know, I made the decision to pursue like the MAT program, like February of last year, like halfway through last year. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna commit to this, and it's like, but it's funny because I look back at my time. It's just like I've been in a capacity like this, whether it's like working at summer camps, tutoring kids, babysitting kids. Since I was like 15, 16, right? Even in New York, I had like a part-time gig, like proctoring SATs and like doing, and like, so I'm always in that capacity. And then like, I find myself in 2020, just like being a TA and thinking like, it's going to be more like, okay, like make copies for me here, you know, do this for me there. But I'm very much like the second teacher in the classroom. And then I kind of just had to I made the decision. I was like, this is fulfilling work, and this is good work. I enjoy coming to work every day, for better or for worse, because like we know the headache it can be like as an educator coming in every day, especially with like this age group. Because did you work a lot with like high schoolers?
Mostly.
You were right. You worked a lot with high schoolers.
Mostly.
So it's like this age group that we're at right now is just like a lot more cringy. And then, like, especially for you, because you teach middle school. You teach middle school and the demographics, which will, like, of the middle school, which we'll get into later. But, like, I also, like, I went from, like, kindergarten, second grade to kindergarten to back to second grade, which isn't as cringy, but it's just a lot more of a headache in a lot of ways.
That's a different kind of headache. I think we both have headaches, but in different ways. You know, because I have the headache that's, like, preteen anxiety, social, angst, like awkward, like weirdos. And I'm a weirdo, so you know I can handle it. But you have like little people that need things, you know what I mean? Like, and that's like or like that don't have like emotional regulation. I mean, the middle schoolers also don't have emotional regulation, but they're so self-conscious that they end up regulating a little bit. Whereas you just got the little like.
Oh my God, I was with the 3-year-olds the other day. I had to stay there for like, it was the first time I was with that age group, and it was a fucking zoo. Like I couldn't, I was like, I don't know how they do this. Like God bless, you know, the teachers in that space.
I'm not built for that. I'm not built for that
at all. And even then, like I'm in second grade right now, and it's nice in the position I'm at. But to have to lead that class every day, I don't think that would be like my goal is to be like a math teacher in middle school.
Like 5th grade, 6th,
like
or like
5th, 6th, just like 5th, 6th grade.
Yeah.
Even I'll do it in like 8th grade too. But that's sort of like where I want to be at. Where I'm like,
okay, STEM.
Yeah. I'm gonna be the STEM dude at school.
Yeah. You know, ironically, I told myself the one thing I would never do was middle school.
Oh yeah.
And I just like made my own bed in that. You know? Like, I was like, oh yeah, I'm never
and you're coming
teaching
back
middle school.
too, and you're coming back, which is dope. Because I feel like I've talked to you. I mean, I've talked to you about this before, and it seemed like you weren't like super gung ho about, like you were very much up in the air about returning to our school. Is there like what sort of like made you want to stay for this third year, come back for this third year?
It's a combination of things. One of the biggest factors I think is just the freedom that I have at our school to teach the way that I want, to teach the content that I want. Like I have complete institutional trust to do it my way. And, you know, I teach 8th grade humanities, and the majority of our curriculum is centering like stories of oppression and like difficult histories. You know, we have an immigration unit, we got a Holocaust unit, Japanese internment unit, and then right now we're on a civil rights unit, which is just like centering blackness and anti-black racism. So that's heavy stuff. And right now in a lot of parts of the country, that's the stuff that's being attacked, you know, that's being banned. And so to be I recognize with a lot of gratitude that I'm in a space right now that's pretty exceptional considering the climate. And I think that trust that I have from the above people and from the parents and from the community in general has really allowed me to just elevate my curriculum, which I've built from scratch. Like I basically kept the titles of the units that they gave me and changed everything underneath. Yeah. Because I love it. Like it makes, and I want to do it my way. I'm a little, you know what I mean? Like,
no, of course.
Because every educator should do it their way. That's what makes the class powerful, I think, is when it like comes authentically from the ways that they're able to frame and talk about or whatever. So that was a big factor. But then another huge factor is just like, I have not had many years of stability over the past 6 years. This is my 7th year in Providence. Yeah. And so undergrad was just chaos because I did too much. You know, I was a student that was working, performing, being a student. Yeah. Like just trying to balance too much. And ironically, I told myself, I always like make my, like, I manifest, like, on accident. Like I was in high school doing too much. So I was like, when I get to college, I'm doing nothing. Like I'm going to learn and I'm going to chill and I'm going to maybe party a little bit. Yeah, when I got there, there's all this dope stuff happening. So I was like, oh, I got to join everything. Right. And now I have resources for the first time. So you best believe I'm going to take advantage of this.
And then on top of everything, I feel like Brown University is like where you don't want to go if you just want to like chill for 4 years.
No, yeah, that's facts. Exactly. And then I did the 1-year master's program, which was OD, like, you know, to fit in a master's degree in a year means they're going to put you to work. Facts. And as you know, you're pursuing that degree, the MAT right now. And it's like hella work because you're learning, but then you're also expected to do some teaching. And then you also have to get certified by the state. So that's a whole nother process. So it's just hella work. And so following the master's program, I had my first year in a new school, first time full time. So that on its own was like so much work because I'm building a curriculum from scratch every day. So like I get home from school depleted, exhausted, and then I'm like, what am I teaching tomorrow? So that's a couple hours of research and then curating, making things accessible. So low key, like when I was considering whether to stay or go this year, I was really thinking like, do I want to completely destabilize myself after having put in the work for a first year at a spot where now I've built a curriculum and then just dip to a new city, new state, new school, new house. Like that was just like, you know,
it's a lot. It's
a lot. And I have a good thing going. Yeah. Now we can talk about the difficulties of this space. They exist.
Oh my God.
Very present in my everyday. I think about them every day. Yeah. But if we're thinking about which one outweighs the other, I think the stability and freedom that I have and institutional support, like my boss is dope. Yes, my coworkers are dope.
That's one thing I gotta agree with. Like the support that you have at the space. Because they want to see you thrive, right?
Absolutely.
And I've been in I've taught in spaces, and this is coming from like the MAT program. I've taught in like public school spaces where that doesn't seem to be the case, and I've had like professors and other people tell me that that's not. Sometimes it does feel very much every man for themselves, so
like
to
on
speak.
An island.
Which is like tough. Which is why like I would love to like start my career off. I mean, I think moving forward, eventually, like finding a new space, a new setting would be good for me as an educator and just for my career. But I feel like there's just no other better place to learn and get it down than the space that we're at right now.
Absolutely. Facts.
And it's funny that you bring up sort of the frustrations. I don't know if I want to get into that just yet.
No, we could come back to that.
And my loyal listeners, my fucking 10 listeners that I have here, they've heard me like talk some shit about what we're talking about right now. But it's you know what? Let's just get into it. I mean, there's a couple there's. You know what? I'll give you the floor on this. What what is frustrating about working in this like predominantly white space?
Mm-hmm.
And this like and not only predominantly white, but it's just like, and I guess it's implied a little bit in a way. There's a lot of money.
Yeah.
In this space,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak. So it's just like I don't know. I feel like it's honestly like I'm frustrated with it, and I feel like it's got to be worse in middle school dealing with a lot of stuff because like now kids are more aware. Like kids are on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
Kids can be meaner.
Mm-hmm.
And they could say more fucked up shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the consequences like can be a lot heavier with that age group. Like when, we're then transitioning into young adults. And this is sort of like a very important time to sort of try and nip a lot of that fucked up behavior in the bud. Coming from where I'm standing, I'm curious as to like what you see in it with regards to all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think. Yeah.
And also, I know. Hold on. I will preface this by saying I know I've been fucking reckless on this show about how I talk about our space, and we did preface this conversation by saying how much we love where we
love
teach.
this space.
So you share how much as you feel comfortable about sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Heard you. Yeah, I start off by saying, I just talked about it, like the gratitude I have for this space. I chose to stay because of how good, like I know that I have it, but that does not mean that there isn't also struggles. And, it's a yes and.
Yeah.
I think this year in particular, the biggest struggle for me has been, I was raised in a way that you give respect to everyone, period.
Absolutely.
And I'm not talking about that blind respect that or authoritarian parenting style where it's like, do what I said because I said it, because I'm the adult and you're the child, and do what I said.
Yeah.
Like, not that type of respect, because that type of respect I think is dangerous because it's mindless and it allows young people. I feel like when young people are taught like that, they become obedient in a way that could make them obedient to the wrong people in the future. You get me?
Yeah.
Like to somebody that's just in a powerful position, whether that's social power or whatever. So I'm not talking about that type of respect. I mean like the humanness, like to see somebody, to acknowledge somebody, and like say like, I see you. You don't have to literally say that, but to communicate that, whether it's with my body language, with a greeting, with a question. And this year I've noticed more than I've ever noticed the lack of social abilities when it comes to the young people. And I'm talking about the whole middle school. Like my grade in particular, they're special in their own way, in the ways that they have made me feel invisible.
Okay.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
But I'm talking like the whole middle school. Like I'll walk down the hallway and like I'll pass all these young people and I make eye contact with people. I try to say hi to people, and people will just dodge me, like duck me. Like I will say hi, and they'll just eyes straight ahead, keep walking.
Sure, yeah.
And I'm like, bro, what? Like,
yeah.
Who are you? Like, why are you? I'm a person that's passing you and trying to say what's up.
Yeah.
The bare minimum. And they won't even look at me. Now, in my own class, for the first, I want to say 2 months this year, most of my students, not all of them, there was a couple that tried, but most of my students, and this has never happened to me before, would walk into my classroom and not acknowledge me.
Yeah.
Like at all. Now, if I acknowledged them, they would then acknowledge me. If I was like, good morning, they'd be like, oh, good morning. But it was like, good morning. Right? Like as if I was just like a decorative piece of the space. I wasn't a person. And they're walking into my classroom and you're not going to say what's up to me.
Facts.
And the teacher that gives a shit about you. I try so hard to show them that. And I know that they know. Yeah. But they just that to me, I could that is on another level of disrespect that I couldn't comprehend.
Sure.
And truly for the first couple months, I felt so isolated. I felt so invisible. And there was a couple times where I was like, why am I here? Like, because I previously worked at a public school with majority low-income students of color.
Yeah.
And in that space, like what you were saying earlier, I was on an island. I didn't have any institutional support. I didn't have any, like every single history teacher in their history department was white, was older. Like the youngest one was 35, but she was giving like 40-year-old cat lady. You know what I mean? Like she wasn't like young in her spirit.
Right.
But she was young.
Yeah.
But she was hella anxious. So like I gave her grace. You know, I wasn't like, but she was the only one that maybe could have been a homie. The rest of them were old white people that just like, not my energy, you know, not my people.
Yeah.
And so that was a struggle in terms of like faculty relationships. But when it came to student relationships, like I felt in community. I remember being like, this feels like I'm back home in East LA and Boyle Heights, you know. And I come from a predominantly Mexican community. This was a predominantly like
Mames,
Dominican.
Weyy. Yeah,
This was more like a que lo que, you know.
yeah, it's more que lo que.
And like there was like some like Central Americans too, and like I just felt like we get it, you know. Like,
Yeah.
And especially growing up low income, like I was able to connect with my students like automatic, you know. As soon as at first they'd be skeptical because they'd be like, who are you? You know, why are you talking to me like this? Like as if you are trying to know me, because they're just not used to that.
Yeah,
All these other teachers are whack. But as soon as they realize that this is authentic, that I'm here, you know, for all of it, then they're like, wow, like this is dope. And then we build like connections. And so this was my first time teaching middle school full time, teaching white kids ever. And like, so to be treated like that by these privileged little rich kids that don't understand how fucking good they have it.
Right.
Like some of them get it, but most of them, I think they've never been in a tough spot, especially if they've gone to this school their whole life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I know what it feels like to have a teacher that automatically assumes the worst in you, that treats you like shit, that treats you like you're dumb, and how badly that can like affect your trajectory. And so like, I know these kids got it good. Because I also put hella work into my class to make sure that they're thriving and interested. And so to be treated like I'm invisible, like I'm meaningless, to be ignored, like I almost was like, you know, I'm not really interested in coming back, because well, while I'm here being ignored, I could be back at a place like Hope where I get to like be that critical connection that students have to an adult that potentially could be a difference maker in a critical like crossroads moment, you know? Like I wrote college recommendations for students like hella last minute. Because they didn't even know they needed it, you know? I helped a kid out that had like a pregnancy scare moment. Like I helped them get all the information they needed, and like, you know what I mean? Like those moments where you're like the world is crashing down and you don't know if there's an adult you can trust, and then you got that one adult. Like I was able to be that one adult. In this space, like I'm just another teacher that cares.
That's important, man.
Right?
That's important. I mean, that kind of goes back in terms of like, at least about you. I feel like you're very suited for this, for like how you say, like you grew up in a household with respect and with care, and like I feel like that's how you move in the hallways, in every space. You move with care, and you're very present, and I feel like that's what makes you so suited. Like when I say like I've never seen you not smile. Like we play ball on the weekends, and she'll be D'ing you up with like the biggest smile on her face. Like it's unreal. But like that's like, and I think that's when you I feel like you embody in a way, like at least what I'm learning now, because I'm in the MAT program right now, and like you read theories about best practices, what you should and shouldn't do, but then you get there and it's tough to embody all of that. And I feel like you're like you embody all that, which is like super important. And I have like so much respect for that. And all those frustrations you outline, it's like I don't necessarily get that on my level yet, maybe because my kids are so young. And they're usually like just like they're always happy to see everybody for the most part. I think my biggest frustration, and it's funny because it stems from the middle school group, because I do that affinity group once a month.
Oh yeah, tell me.
With the black and brown boys,
Mm-hmm.
and it's this year's been a lot more chill.
Okay.
Mainly because there was a lot of boys of color that left last year, and then now like this is the last round that we have left. Like I don't even know if we'll be able to have this affinity group
There's
next
only
year.
one black boy in the 7th grade.
Right. Exactly.
Crazy.
And the majority of them right now are in 8th grade. I
Yeah.
know some may be leaving next year that are going from 6th to 7th. So like the numbers, they're gonna be looking pretty weak.
Yeah.
Like in the next couple years.
No, like for real.
But like they've expressed sort of like the. You see, like I get like really like, open the can of worms right now, but it's just like I guess for lack of a better word, is sort of like the hypocrisy in our mission and what we stand for and what we strive for. And I don't think it's for lack of not trying or not caring or just like, you know, virtue signaling or just like presenting this, you know, this idea of what, you know, equality looks like. But I think it stems from that, you know, that 1% demographic that's in our school that like is what really runs the school. And unfortunately we are in a school that no matter how much we want to strive for all these things, it's like at the end of the day, like money is what runs, like the bills need to be paid. Right. And I think sometimes I feel like where we work, and these are my words, these aren't hers. These aren't her words, these are my words. Just in case. It's just like I feel like I feel like we need to take a stand somewhere as like the leaders of our community need to take a stand on what we can accept and what we can't accept. I think there's been so many echoes of just like the bullshit treatment that these black and brown boys have gone through in these last like 3-4 years as middle schoolers, where they feel like a lot of situations that were maybe racist or sexist or whatever it is, like it wasn't treated, there wasn't that justice that they felt needed to be carried out because the person on the other end pays full tuition. Or the person on the other end, like their family is so-and-so. You know what I'm saying? And so like, I'm just like, I always think about like, where do we draw the line? Like what, like I feel like we let too much slide, like for what we present and what we stand for. And I'm saying this knowing full well, like that it's gotta be like hard to make those decisions. But like, especially last year, like going, you know, having these meetings once a month with the black and brown boys in middle school, it's like, especially coming because I was a part of this school when I was young as well. So it's just like, it's frustrating to see on that level, what can be done.
Yeah. You know, I hear stories because we have a affinity group once a week during lunch for all the middle school students of color. And this last one that we did, we broke it up 7th and 8th grade and 5th and 6th grade so that it was a little bit more developmentally like together. And we just asked them like, you know, what has it been like to talk about race and racism in class? What has your experience been? Have there been any moments that were like uncomfortable or like problematic? And the younger students or the 7th graders and the 8th graders talking about earlier years spoke about examples of like the wildest shit. Like,
yeah. No, yeah. And like, and that, like, this is what I was trying to get out in so many words. And there was some particular stuff that I went into a little bit more deep, still like with anonymity, but like, you know, a year ago when this first came to my attention, I was like really frustrated, and I like recorded that day when I got home, and I was like, all right, because it's funny because I was reading it in like juxtaposition with reading about sort of like how the Black Lives Matter movement, like the actual organization, came like crashing down. So I was like, well, but my bad. Go ahead. What are you saying?
Well, they're like one example that stood out to me is like this like little white girl repeated like a thing that was said in a book that was an egregious racial epithet that was like as bad as it gets. like as bad as it gets,
Mhm.
like truly, like hard R.
Yeah.
Really, like said it out loud with her chest.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, like I was just reading the book, and it's
Right.
like,
No, I don't know. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
but to me, what's shocking is like one that obviously that homegirl thought that was not
Right.
OD, you know,
Right. Like she said it with her chest.
With her
like She
chest.
said it with her chest.
like as if like
Yeah.
you know, just because you're reading it, like to replicate that sort of violent language at all is obviously so harmful and ugly. Even if it's not your words, like girl, you're saying it out loud. Like
Right.
the impact of hearing that word doesn't matter if you thought of it or if you're reading it, you're saying it out loud, and you could be triggering people, you could be offending people,
Sure.
right? But to me, what was so shocking is the fact that there was not a very explicit, I'm sure there was though, a very explicit conversation about how harmful that language is and why we're not going to replicate that language.
Yeah.
Like, for example, in my class right now, focusing on like where our civil rights curriculum picks up at Reconstruction, and it basically takes us all the way to like contemporary. And we see a lot of content that has the N-word, but the one that ends with the O, you know, the ways that Black people were just referred to in the early 20th century, like within the Black community, you know, and it's not like they chose that word, but that was the word that they used. Like Elaine Locke's text, the new, you know, in my class, what we do is I say like, we're not going to replicate that sort of language, because even though in the past that was just synonymous with Black, right? That word has picked up a different connotation over time, and today, like that word could be very triggering. So we're not gonna replicate that language in class. That could be potentially triggering, but we're not gonna replace it with something else, because we want to honor that word was there, and at the time, that's what people used.
Right.
Like that's what people in the Black community used, and so instead we just like leave a pause to acknowledge the word, and then we read. And like any materials we're reading, like we know not to replicate that language, and we just give it a pause to acknowledge it. And like that was something that like every student, I repeated like many times to ensure that no one, and then I also said, if you accidentally say it, like that's real, apologize and move on and do better. You know, it's like, like, so to hear that somebody in the lower grade said a hard R out loud,
right,
to me it's like that says something about the student, but I'm also like, how is this set up that they don't know that would be the most egregious thing ever?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
yes,
the most egregious word that could be said out loud.
Absolutely.
And like that's like, I hear a lot of in the lower middle school kids being like egregious behavior like that, where they're saying wild anti-Black things.
Yeah.
Like crazy. And I'm like, what? You know, because I'm hearing this from younger students, things from the past, and they're telling me these stories at lunch literally 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. And I'm like, you know, what did they, like, how did they handle that? Like, what did they do? And they were like, oh, they just had a conversation with them. We ended up actually talking about like something else in the, you know, and I'm just like, because if that went down in my class, like I would come for that student.
Right.
But in a way that's like deeply emotional. Like I would sit that student down.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, you know, I use my own discomfort as a way to teach a lot. So like one time my students were disrespecting my class so intensely in terms of like taking my things, breaking things, leaving trash on the floor, like just really like disrespectful and entitled, very privileged. And I come from such a low income background. I used to help clean people's houses with my parents, which was the way that my mom was like making money, you know. So like cleaning up after rich people is not something I'm not familiar with. So to have to do it for these kids when I am employed to teach them and to guide them, not to clean up after them, that hit me deep. And the way I was raised is like, I'm not going to be living in a dirty space. Yeah. So at the end of the day, I will clean because this is our space. It's my classroom. I'm not going to live like that. But I finally like got too tired of it. So I told my students one day, I came in and I was like, I got to get something off my chest.
Yeah.
And I said very bluntly, like, this is my experience with what I just said. You know, I've cleaned in the past. When I have to clean up after you, it makes me feel like I'm back there. It makes me feel like you think that I am here to just serve you and to like, you know, and like I'm in a position of inferiority. and like da 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 da, and I'm like, it makes me feel uncomfortable. It makes me
Mm-hmm.
feel like, you know, a little bitter, and like, you now know that you're making me feel this way, and you can choose if you're going to continue to treat me this way,
Yeah.
or if you're going to take accountability for our space and help me clean up. Because whether or not you change your behavior, I will continue to clean up after you.
Right.
And like, when I speak to them in that way, they usually are like, we're sorry. Oh my God. We're so, like, you know, they get so shook because I center my feelings. Like I say, you're making me feel invisible.
Yeah.
And they're like, you know, I'm not like, you're being a bad kid. Like, you're being so disrespectful.
Right,
you know,
right.
I'm like, you make me feel invisible. I'm deeply uncomfortable right now.
Yeah.
And like, they're triggered, you know. So if a student said some OD shit like that, I would sit them down and be like, you like,
Of
you know what I
course,
mean? Like,
yeah.
it wouldn't be like, you're a bad kid, you're doing bad things. I'd be like, the way that you just made me feel was blank, 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 you know, like.
And I think it's important too to like for any educator to like recognize it's just like no matter how, honestly, this is true for kindergarten all the way up to, you know, 12th grade, where like no matter how aware or unaware you think a student may be, like stuff like that resonates with people. And kids, no matter how young, they can pick up on certain energy and on certain vibes and on what you're giving towards them. So I think it is important not to like, and like I'm learning about this too in terms of like not approaching the classroom in terms of like, you know, I'm your teacher, I'm your boss.
Right,
You
like
guys
the
do what I
authoritarian.
say. Yeah, very authoritarian. And I think having those conversations, it's like you're treating students with a sense of like agency, with a sense of autonomy, and like you're reminding them like you're a fucking real person.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna talk to you like a real person.
Exactly.
Doesn't mean you have to like cuss them out. Doesn't mean you
No.
have to be like, you know.
Yeah.
But that's crazy.
But I am conflicted though, because I don't think that the teachers of color should be the ones that have to always do those things.
Right. Yeah.
So that's where I feel like the really like dissonance for me, because a lot of the stories that I was hearing from students, these moments happened with white students towards students of color, but in a white teacher's space.
Right.
And then the way that it got handled was and like that kind of made me feel like that I would not have handled it that way.
Right.
You know, and so there's a part of me that wants to be like, and I tell my students, like, if that happened in my class, that would be different. Like,
right,
you know,
right.
But then at the same time, like, why are we the only ones that are handling it? You know, like we shouldn't be the only ones that can handle it in a way that's impactful, in a way that feels real. And I feel like that's one of my biggest problems with this school, is that I don't like how other teachers handle conflict sometimes.
Yeah.
I think it's either authoritarian, like,
Right.
or it's so dismissive of the harm that was caused.
Yeah.
Like if somebody said a racial epithet in my class like that, it would be a moment, you know?
Yeah.
Like that would be a whole thing. But I did get to experience a moment recently where a white teacher stepped up. And it was a white teacher that I felt kind of sus about for a little bit, because she said something one time that made me feel weird. Nothing egregious, but something that just rubbed me weird. And I was like,
I feel like I know who it is.
why'd you say that? I think
feel
you
like I know
probably
who it
do.
is. After this, I'm
right.
gonna guess. I'm gonna play a guessing
But she
game
said
after
something
this.
one time, I was like, shut up. You know, in my mind, I'm just like, shut up.
Yeah.
Just don't talk. Like,
Right.
you don't need to talk. But anyways, I run the multiracial student group at lunch.
yeah.
That's once every like cycle. And this little like white looking girl came up to me one time with one of the girls of color and was like, can I come to Mosaic? That's what the group is called. Can I come to Mosaic? Like, I'm multiracial. Like, and I was like, oh, like, are you? No, she said, can I come to Mosaic? And I was like, I mean, are you multiracial? You know? And she goes, yeah, like I'm Asian. And I was like, I mean, if you're Asian, like for sure, pull up, you know?
Right.
She looks white, right? So she's like, okay. And then I find out that homegirl's not multiracial. Like, she's hella white.
Oh my God. So I don't know if this is the same person. Did I cut? Is it more?
Yeah,
to the
there's
story?
more. There's
Go
more.
ahead.
So I started getting so anxious because I'm like, oh my God, like this girl's gonna come. And then I heard other students being like, is she coming? Is she coming? Like, yeah, she's on her way. And I was like, oh, like, cause I knew when she got there, I was gonna have to be like, girl, like this is not for you.
Right.
But I felt so like mortified because I didn't want to call her out in front of everyone. And of course I wouldn't do it in front of everyone, but even me being like, yo, can I talk to you outside? And then she doesn't come back. We know what happened. Right. So I was so stressed and I like was just getting more and more anxious. I kept thinking, how would I practice having that conversation? But then it would make me too anxious. So I would just be like, I'm going to wing it. I'm going to wing it, you know, like,
right.
But they reached out to one of that girl because she's in the lower middle school, her teachers, and told the teacher. And the teacher came and was like, oh, I'll talk to her. And I was like, oh, please, like, thank you. That would be so great. And she's like, yeah, I got you. So she pulls up at the beginning of lunch, the teacher, and she's like, yo, is she here? Is she here? And I was like, no, she's not here yet, but could you intercept her so she doesn't ever get here?
Right.
And she was like, yeah, I got you. Yeah. So she intercepts her. I don't hear anything about it. She never shows up. But I hear the students in my space being like, where is she? Like, I thought she was coming. And then one of them is like, a teacher stole her. Like, and I'm in my mind, I'm like, girls, why are you all mad? Like, she's white. Like,
right.
Like,
it's like, yeah.
Like, I know you like her, but this isn't for her, you know? Like, why are you being all about it? But I think she low-key kind of tricked them unknowingly, or that she was multiracial because she's Portuguese and, like, she was some, like,
it's
North Middle Eastern, but, like, not the Middle Eastern, like the white people in...
Right.
I forgot what, but whatever.
Yeah.
But she interpreted that as multiracial. Yeah. But it's like, no, you have multiple countries in your background, but you're white. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
But so I never even had to have the conversation. I text the teacher after the fact, like, hey, how did that conversation go? And she sends me the most beautiful text where she says, you know, we talked about blah, 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 blah. And all the points were hitting. And she said, you know, thank you so much for letting me be a part of this because this student has been a bit of a problem and I've wanted to step in for a while now. So, like, because she's been just taking up a lot of space, you know. She's a dope student, super funny, super sweet. Yeah. But, you know, just like not as a theater personality can be very
right,
and not aware of how much space they're taking up.
Right.
So I didn't have to do nothing. And that student never tried to come to my group again. And that was the one moment that I was like, all right.
And I'm glad. And
all right. You stepped it up. Like, you redeemed yourself.
Right. And I'm glad that on, like, the faculty level, at least, like, the leadership level, like, someone stepped in there. Yeah. Because that's sort of what, like, I echoed earlier in terms of, like, what's frustrating in dealing with things like that in this space. And I also, like, I mean, I don't want to dive too much into this because do you have to be anywhere? Okay. Because... all right, that's just good to know. It's good to know. Like, and then because of stories like that, on top of, you know, other things that we deal with in terms of, you know, how we interact with each other, how we go about making space for different types of identities and all of that. It makes I sometimes question how much, like, how much. I don't want to say harm because I think it's very important that, like, that our education is based around all of this stuff. I want to say, like, leaves them at a disadvantage in terms of moving forward after this space because, like, they're really, especially in Rhode Island, there's not too many educational spaces like the ones that we teach in that makes space in the way that we make space for all identities, for all people, right? Because I had a similar and I had a similar thing happen because I do one of the teachers that heads up. There's been affinity groups like in middle school these last couple of weeks, and so I was asked to help with the Latino one, and I did it with the Spanish teacher in 7th grade. Got you. And we get there. There's only 4 of them, and they're all. Like, they all pass as, like, white completely. Like, I honestly didn't, besides one of them, I didn't know that they were Latino until, like, they were in the affinity group. Right. Right?
The students, you
mean. Which is fine. Yeah, the students.
Oh, yeah, they're so white passing in this school.
And then I had a conversation with this teacher before they came in. She's like, so this person right here, they're in this group. They don't have any Latino background. The reason why they're in this group and why we're letting it slide right now is because this person says that they are Latino because they lived in Mexico for like 4 years.
Nah, shut that shit down.
And because their gender identity, they've been like I'm trying to say this without being they're they've been not questioning, but they've been exploring their gender identity recently. That because of that, and there may be some confusion that they're just gonna let it rock, and I'm just like, no. Like, in my head, I was like, absolutely not. Like,
bruh, gender is not race. Like,
right, and it's
you cannot question your like racial identity is not fluid. Transracial people, they're fake. Like, that's not real.
Yes, we don't need no Rachel Dolezals, no Sean Kings in our space. I feel like if anything,
encouraging that student to explore the affinity space is hella problematic. Like,
exactly, and that's sort of like what I'm saying in terms of just like we're not preparing. Like, first of all, that's harmful, just outright. And
what?
then like so I'm glad that there was somebody, like, at least in your situation, that like sort of made it clear, like, this is who, like,
right,
this is what this means and this is what that means. Right,
because she was multinational.
Right.
But that's not multiracial, girl.
Right.
Right? And she's walking through this world as a white woman. It doesn't matter if she got these different country backgrounds. Like, she like walks through the world as a white woman. And then you know what's so funny?
Yeah.
The last sentence of the text that teacher sent me, she said, like, I called her mom and she's fully on board with her being identified as white.
That's great.
I was like, cool.
Oh, man. I mean, like, yeah, we could go all day in terms of, just picking apart the nuances of where we teach.
That's weird though that they let that student stay. I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't think I honestly, well, I was expecting them to come, and I don't think they ended up coming that day. I don't know why. I hope it was for that same reason that your student didn't come that day. But I'm like, this teacher's telling me, like, filling me in on sort of this stuff, and I'm just like, bro, what the fuck? What? Like, what the fuck is going on? Like, middle school is like a whole different beast in that space. But yeah. So you've been in Providence for like 8 years now. Thumbs up, thumbs down, good, bad.
No, I love it.
Do you love
love
Providence?
It. Absolutely. I think.
Fuck yeah. She loves Providence. She's one of ours now.
I love Providence. I think the food in Providence is amazing. I think the people in Providence are dope. You know what's cool? In my class on Monday, we did a case study we were studying like histories of segregation and redlining. So we started broad, and then we did a case study, which is in Providence, Rhode Island, and we looked at Providence history of redlining and like housing covenants and all that stuff, and just looking at the demographics of Rhode Island and how different the 4 core cities within Rhode Island are, which is like Providence, Woonsocket, Pawtucket, and Central Falls, and just like the dramatic contrast between these like city within the like close to capital versus the rest of Rhode Island. Yeah. And Rhode Island is white as fuck.
Yeah,
but
Providence is like,
I'm so blessed to be like in this space, because I don't really go to greater Rhode Island, that's not my business. Yeah. But like ever since I came to Providence and have been in Providence, like being close to other populations of people of color has been so comforting to me, especially coming from a background where like there was no diversity. Everyone was Mexican. Yeah. Like my schools that I went to were always, my elementary school, I don't remember anyone that wasn't Mexican. My middle school, which was 2,500 students, I remember there was 2 black kids, 1 white girl that transferred out, and there was no Asian students. Everybody else was Mexican. Like, so I just have always been entrenched in a Latino community. And so then to come over here and like, to live in places where I'm like surrounded by black and brown people and just by like different cultures has been so beautiful. And I've been so grateful to also have exposure to like other Latinos, because I never really knew other Latinos before I came to the East Coast. Yeah. So then some like my best friends are Dominican and Puerto Rican, and like to then like get to experience their cultures with them through food, through like trips. Like my best friend is from Puerto Rico. She grew up there. And like she like has taken me, and I've gone to see the house she grew up in, and like go to her favorite beach, and like, just like be with her at her grandma's house, like it's been so beautiful. And so Providence has given me exposure to like people and cultures that I've never gotten to be around. That's like adjacent, but it's still different. Exactly. Right, but I feel in community right away, even though we're coming from different places, and then we get to be like, oh, you do this, I do
Yeah,
this.
right,
like
right,
you
right.
call beans that, I call them this.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
And it's been so beautiful. It's like meeting like family you've never met before.
Yeah.
That you're like, you're my cousin. Yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense. Makes
Yeah.
sense. And like it's been dope. And I think Providence is just so unique because you can find everything.
Yeah.
You can find like 1%ers in Providence, and you can find
Yeah.
low income communities in Providence. Like it is such a mix. And
Yeah.
like we can talk about, you know, all of the poverty and segregation that's a product of like systems.
Mm-hmm.
But as someone that was an outsider that came in, like I felt immediately like at home. And the winter's kind of crazy.
The winter,
the cold is
cold
different.
sucks. The
That's
cold is
probably
different.
just my least favorite part is just the cold because I'm from LA, you know, sunny SoCal.
Right.
So that was definitely an adjustment. But even then, like the novelty of winter was kind of cool because I'd never gotten it before. So I was like, oh, this is cute. Like there's
for like
snow.
the first 2 years, and then it's just like,
Yeah.
fuck this shit. Last year I was shoveling this fucking driveway for like 5 hours when we had that huge snowstorm. I was miserable. But I always like I like to hear people's perspective on Providence that didn't grow up here in Providence, because I mentioned this earlier too, growing up here in Providence, and when I think about it, and I'm grateful to be back here and I have literally all my family's here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sort of seeing, like, I'm experiencing Providence in a new chapter in my life,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm trying with new lens. But it's very much like I can get stuck in that like small town vibe, which I
Mhm.
feel like you can find anywhere, no matter how, like, even coming from LA, like I feel like, you know, if you don't leave, you say you're from East LA, if you don't leave East LA, like you can feel like trapped in East LA, so to
Mhm.
speak. And that's the reason why, like, I wanted to leave so bad. I hated feeling like I was gonna be trapped here, and then like I wasn't gonna like do anything with sort of the opportunities that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm in a space where it's just like, you know, Providence isn't that bad. And it's also just like, it turned into like a really fucking hip town. Like there's so much to do. There's a lot of art downtown, and
love
like
the
the jewelry district is great. Like there's
Yeah.
places like Troop now,
Right.
and like Revival now, which is dope.
Crib.
Crib is fucking
Right.
dope. I was there for my birthday a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just I'm learning to love Providence in like a new way now.
Yeah.
Which is great, and I'm learning to be grateful. And gratitude is something, because I kind of wanted to talk about this too a little bit. Like, how do you? I feel like that's part of your thing. I feel like you are really. There's like, I think a lot of your energy comes from gratitude.
I love that you said that because I say the same thing.
Yeah.
That's cool that you said that. I like that.
And sometimes I feel like a piece of shit because I feel like I should be more grateful. Like, it's hard for me to be grateful, in the sense that not that I'm not grateful,